Okay, so ever since Derek Chauvin got his appeal denied and then was stabbed in prison, frothing, right wing, racist, bootlicking curs all over the internet have been crying their eyes out over the conspiracy to keep this murderer in prison when in reality he's just your friendly neighborhood cop who couldn't help but crush a guy's windpipe on the pavement, resulting in his death because George Floyd was a bad guy anyway, so who cares? Right here, Derek Chauvin, former Minneapolis police officer who was convicted in the murder of George Floyd, was reportedly stabbed and appears to be in serious condition. Medics had to do life saving measures. Crazy conspiracy theorists are now claiming he was stabbed because he was about to show what really happened. No, you crazy people, the prosecution already did that, and the jury decided what took place. Why does everything have to be a conspiracy theory? What really happened, huh? That probably would have come in handy during the trial, don't you think? What really happened? Yeah, he is just waiting until he's in prison and his life is ruined to tell people what really happened. Forget about pre-trial, forget about during the trial, forget about any time it would have possibly helped him. It had to be now. Seriously, I've never seen so many angry, delusional freaks come together to prove the truth about this case. And they have like 101 different conflicting reasons for the event, all of which have nothing to do with the cause of death and are irrelevant to the incident. Now, I have got all of these on my timeline, and some of these imbeciles are still arguing over newer and more imaginative reasons for Floyd's death as we speak. I shit you not, it started as soon as I woke up this morning. In the span of an hour alone on Twitter, I've gotten these versions of the truth. There was a rock of some type of drug on Floyd's tongue. That's one. He swallowed a handful of pills before getting out of the car. He was already overdosing when Chauvin got there. He was drunk. He tried to fight police and was so violent they had to put their knee on his neck for 9 minutes. He had stuffed meth in his mouth. He had 3 times the amount of fentanyl in his system that would presumably kill a human being. There was no bruising found on his neck at all. And this glorious gem, Chauvin isn't in prison for murder. He's in prison because cops are trained in medical care, and he didn't use the right treatment when Floyd was obviously overdosing. And by the way, a knee on the neck is standard procedure when they confront someone. Hmm. First off, there is no truth when you're rattling out anything you could grasp at as a desperate excuse to side with this murderous piece of shit. There is no truth when you're making shit up. There is no truth when just a handful of cretinous bootlickers have given me multiple reasons for Floyd's death, each more outrageous than the last. There is no truth where there is no consistency, and there is no truth where it doesn't make sense. So, to recap the truth of the matter that I've gotten in the span of just over an hour, paints this really weird ass picture in which George Floyd had a crack rock, methamphetamine, and 3 times the lethal dose of fentanyl in his system. This is before getting into the car to drive to the shop without incident and write a bad check. Then when cops got there, he stuffed a bunch of pills in his mouth and a second crack rock magically appeared on his tongue. He started crying that he couldn't breathe out of nowhere and then managed to violently fight the cops all before getting out of the car. Then, because all cops are trained to be fucking EMTs, but Derek Chauvin just happened to be the one guy who apparently missed all of those classes, he pressed a knee onto Floyd's neck because of nothing to do with an overdose, but because he was so violent while on the pavement. And if you don't believe that because the video didn't show it, then it was because of an overdose. It was because of an overdose, which was a mix of 4 different types of highly illegal drugs in quantities high enough to take down a fucking elephant. And this is absolutely true. And they know it, while the cause of death pegged it as murder. This is the story that was presented to me from just a handful of people based on all their different reasons, all their different excuses, because that's what they are, excuses to defend a fucking murderer. First off, there was no rock found on Floyd's tongue. And if it were a rock, why would it be a bunch of pills? And if they were pills, why would you say meth? That didn't exist either, by the way. Nothing was mentioned by anyone at the scene about noticing any drugs or Floyd scrambling to take drugs in police presence. Shut the fuck up about overdose. And shut the fuck up with backpedaling by claiming the overdose was before the cops got there. This guy drove to the store and wrote a check claiming he was overdosing on whatever horrible, nasty, 4 times the human tolerance limit of whatever drug would mean he is Superman incarnate. That wouldn't mean he's a piece of trash. That would actually mean he should probably be the next Iron Man or some bullshit. They don't think. But the video, as far as violence, only really showed the violence on account of Chauvin. You know, the guy who murdered him. And we know this because we all saw the video. I don't give a fuck what you say about no bruising on his neck. What the hell? He fucking died on camera. We saw it. Knee on his neck, 9 minutes, and he died. Chauvin is in prison for murder, not for failing to use proper medical treatment. And as I told that particular imbecile, cops barely get their high school diploma. They're not fucking doctors. And whether overdosing or not, crushing a victim's throat with your knee is not something they teach in any medical training course. Cause of death was murder, not an overdose. It was murder, not Floyd doing drugs in the past. It was murder, not writing a bad check. It was murder due to Chauvin crushing his neck with his knee on the pavement for almost 9 minutes while Floyd struggled to breathe until he didn't breathe anymore. We know this because we saw evidence. There was a video. They played it 1,000,000 times across the web and then again at court. They had a trial. They called their witnesses. They had experts. They had a judge. They had a jury. Derek Chauvin was found guilty of murder. Now he's in prison with other people who are guilty of murder. That's the whole law and order, robust prison system that all of these idiots are supposed to be so happy exists. It is working exactly as intended. And something else that I wondered too. You know, this country probably incarcerates more people than anywhere else in the world. We incarcerate more people than China. I think we even incarcerate more people than North Korea. And a lot of people in our prisons are there for murder convictions. A lot of people in prison have their appeals denied. A lot of people in prison get shanked. So, what exactly is it that makes this case some big conspiracy? What is it? What is it about this dimwit with a badge that makes him so important that anyone would give half a shit about what the hell is happening to him in prison? What is it about this typical, insecure little murdering asshole that convinces these morons the entirety of the American government and mainstream media has concocted this elaborate scheme to find him guilty and put him in prison? And then have him stabbed and try to assassinate him now, of all times, now. By the way, it isn't an assassination. He's not fucking JFK. He's not the president. He's not the first lady. He's not Malcolm X. All right? He's a little fucking pissant that got his ass stabbed. That's all it is. So, what is the reason it has to be a conspiracy to silence him or assassinate him? You know, probably the same reason that they argue anything else that would be rooted in common sense, decency, and logic. They just don't like it. It goes against this fantasy they like to have, where cops like Chauvin, especially cops, get away with shit like this and suffer no consequences. It goes against this fantasy of us versus them. And this case dealt them a huge blow. Because that's all I've been hearing from these people. And they're desperate, pathetic, flat out incorrect versions of the truth. Excuses. Ways to convince themselves, probably more than you and me, that it was okay for George Floyd to be murdered. That he wasn't anybody important anyway. That Chauvin is kind of like them. That they don't like that there are consequences for treating other human beings as if they were beneath you. That there are even consequences and should be consequences for your actions toward the least among us. Ironically, all the excuses and the made up bullshit designed to convince themselves Floyd was the worst of the worst still doesn't make it right. That's one of the more important points. People are too fucking stupid to see it. It really wouldn't matter if he were just a nobody to you. It doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it right. Especially not for a cop. Especially not for somebody your tax dollars pay to carry a gun. And that is why Chauvin was convicted a murderer and is in prison. But even in the face of any of this hard-ass evidence, they continue to lie and delude themselves. It's disgusting, it's insane, and it's sad. And it even goes as far as, using all those tired fallback tactics, like people like me are just bots, or the massive projector comes out on display. This attempt to high road all of us with these faux lamentations on the effects of propaganda. Of course, all of this kind of shit, you have to call out as soon as you see it. Because what you have with people like these is this false idea that commiserating with others inside their little bubble and completely ignoring everything going on the outside, like the trial, the video, the evidence, and the verdict, means we're victims of propaganda, and they're not. And they're totally so much smarter than everybody else. Okay, so you ignore information. You hear snippets of what's going on from people, and then you make sure only to discuss it with other safe people that aren't going to call you out, and you build up like a huge fucking snowball this made up version of events. And that's what you're going to go with. You see, if paying attention to things like the evidence and the verdict is just mainstream propaganda, then on what would you be basing your deduction that Chauvin is innocent? How would you be getting information? How would you be learning the facts if watching or reading anything about it outside of this little bubble is just propaganda? Because the dozen or so wildly conflicting versions of the truth that I've gotten so far today aren't going to cut it. If you had the truth, you'd all be in unison. If you knew the truth, you'd all be saying the same thing. All of these people on Twitter defending this murderous piece of shit would know, and they'd all be giving the same answer. They don't. If they knew the truth, it might have come up in the trial. If they knew the truth, it would have been on the death certificate. We would have seen it in video evidence. Now, it's what they're basing everything on is some social media clatch of racist, bootlicking, right-wing fuckwits who don't know the case details because they don't care. They're not going to look them up. They're not going to give a shit because they begin the battle with a fantasy and drag out the fantasy by repeating lame-ass excuses and lies and rumors ad nauseum. That's what. They're knee-deep in confirmation bias. Although confirmation bias with these people are not through facts, but through each other. Other mentally ill individuals. Because in their world, that's all they need. The echo chamber effect. Alternative facts, otherwise known as fantasy. They make up reality, and they're going to make sure you listen to every crazy ass bit of it. Because they're in so deep, they can't tell the difference anymore. People like these, they can't tell the difference between fantasy and reality. They probably wouldn't be able to if you paid them. A nutcase can be a nutcase if they want to be, just like that old man could believe that he's Santa Claus on 34th Street. But much like with religion, when the mental illness gets so intense that it's affecting people's lives, it's time to shut that shit down. Don't believe a word of what these monumentally pathetic people are trying to peddle around about this convicted murderer. The trial is over. We're aware of the situation. We're aware of the evidence. And you know what? This dumb shit probably got so pissed off over his rejected appeal, it's most likely exactly what led to his ass getting stabbed too. Anybody ever think of that? As much of a piece of shit in prison as he was out. And don't say you have a problem with me saying something like that, because anybody watching or listening to this defending this murderer had no problem whatsoever with speculating when it came to George Floyd. Chauvin still has his life. So far. Floyd doesn't. That's a guy who got silenced. I compared these people to, because they sound exactly like it, the 9/11 truthers. They have no information that anybody else doesn't have. They have no special type of inside track or insight or connections or detective-like abilities of deduction that anybody else doesn't. But once they decide something is the truth, or they just get that little kernel of truth, they just take a little snippet of something they may have heard, or maybe common knowledge, and then they just keep rolling it up like a fucking sushi roll in an ever-lengthening row of rice, sticky rice, making it bigger and bigger. You know, just filling in the blanks and building on it with whatever the fuck their ill-ass brain can come up with, even if they pulled it right out of their ass. And then, you know, it's just propaganda. If we try to say, well, that's not exactly what happened, Those aren't exactly the facts. No, you're just propagandized. They're not propagandized because they didn't get any information at all. I'm pretty sure this is what's going on with Derek Chauvin. Like the 9/11 truthers, if it doesn't fit their narrative, they ignore it. If somebody comes up with something because they read, they watch court proceedings and listen to experts and whatnot, and, it doesn't fit, on that ever enlarging or growing sushi roll of fantasy wrapped around that little kernel of truth. It's just propaganda. You're all just brainwashed. They know, though. They're the smart ones. They're not the sheep. And then it becomes, everybody is in agreement on what the facts are, and, the whole thing is over. And I seem to be the odd one out. So I guess that's true. Everybody else must be brainwashed, and I must be special. It's all fallacy. It's all logical, argumentative fallacy. It's actually easy to recognize. And if you can't recognize it readily, just listen or read the shit that they put for about 2 minutes, and then you'll get it. It's like those 9/11 truthers. And the further down the rabbit hole they get with their own horse shit, the less they're going to listen to anyone or anything else that's out there. No, like literally, while investigations are going on, while people are finding shit out, while experts are working on it, they're completely out of it by then. They've made up their mind, and that's what they're going with, and that's what's going on with Derek Chauvin and all these freaks defending him. It's just wild. I can't. I feel like Hubert Farnsworth. I want to take off from this fucking planet. I can't deal with this level of illness. I don't know. Is it something in the water? Is it all because of Trump? Is it something to do with the pharmaceutical industry? There's something in the medication. I don't know. Oh, we definitely do live in a post-fact society. That's for damn sure. It's just really messed up. And it's messed up how just absolutely willfully ignorant and deluded people are, because that's what they do. I mean, okay, mainstream media, propaganda, the fact that this shithead that's still on my screen is a fucking murderer, that's propaganda. So where would you be getting your facts? Where would you be getting your information? Russia? Mars? No, it's just a bunch of other assholes. It's just a bunch of other mentally ill freaks, and they all bounce shit off each other, and they don't pay attention to anything going on. Because, they don't fall for propaganda. All right. So were you in the courtroom? Do you know any of these people personally? You can't shut yourself off from information and then tell people they're just propagandized because they take in information about a situation, but you don't. You just talk with a few random pieces of shit like you on Twitter or on Reddit. You bounce shit off each other and lather each other's asses about what you have decided the situation is. And that's all it is you deciding based on nothing, because everything that's out there is just propaganda, isn't it? Of course, the reality of the situation is everything that's out there goes directly in contrast to what they want the truth to be. We know these people defend garbage people like Derek Chauvin because they are racist, they are bootlickers, they're right wing, they're conservative. He's white, the victim was black. It's obviously not based on fact. It's not based on any sense of human decency or common sense or watching the evidence that was filmed. I don't know. Cops don't do well in prison. Obviously, they don't. It's not a conspiracy when we're proven right time after time. Yeah, again, it's not a conspiracy theory when the people arguing it's a conspiracy theory can't even fucking agree on what the cause of death was. Of course, we know what the cause of death was, but I just listed out to you that's just a handful of people. A handful of people in a matter of an hour, maybe an hour and a half, all giving me different reasons, all different drugs, different situations, and yeah, you're you don't have any credibility. You don't know what happened. You want Derek Chauvin to be seen as a saint, and you want George Floyd to be seen as a piece of crap. That it was totally fine for him to be murdered. That's all it is. That is what it is. When you defend Derek Chauvin, that's what you're saying. And considering somebody had mentioned it, and it is true, with Donald Trump coming into the presidency and everything, it has really opened up a lot of people's eyes as to how many truly awful people walk among us. And this is an example of that. It just is. This is a prime example of what we're talking about. And then they will defend it. They will defend a ship as it's going down. It doesn't matter. Some things like not connecting in their brains, which causes this. And I've said it before, other people have said it. Is it mental illness or is it a low IQ? I tend to think it might be a special type of mental illness brought on by a problem with IQ, something exclusive to people that just aren't that bright, and they don't recognize even what they're saying as they say it. It's really fucked up. Alternative facts and conspiracy theories are all the rage with the right. Truth matters not. What they want the truth to be is all that matters. He was stabbed because he's now in an institution filled with those he previously harmed, and they know it. He was stabbed for killing George Floyd. He knew something like this was very probable. Oh my God. There was no fentanyl. There was no crack. There was no pot. There was no meth. There were no pills. I've been listening to these excuses all morning. Been listening to these excuses all morning. You know the truth, but it involves a spinning wheel of whatever sounds the worst. Fuck off. Who is this? Yep, another asshole with the American flag in the background. Again, like I said, I haven't heard anybody mention the fact he just got his appeal denied. And then, like a day later, he's stabbed. Does anybody want to take a guess as to why these two events would be so close together? Do you think maybe he had himself a little meltdown in prison because the system he thought was supposed to protect him from consequences still isn't working for him? And maybe little Chovy had a bit of a meltdown in prison. Maybe he started some shit with some inmates. Maybe they were sick of listening to him whine. You don't know. They stabbed him. How horrible. It took him this long to finally get at him. To be honest, I expected him not to last a week. Shut him up just as a story for freedom. Story for freedom went viral. Ah, sources. No, you look. No, you. In other words, you don't have a source. You're just making shit up and can't back it up. Fuck your conspiracy theories. Oh my fucking God. Straight out lies. It's I can't stand it anymore. By the way, his story of freedom began the minute he got his ass fired, arrested, and then stood trial for murder. He's had plenty of time to drop his bombshell, and nothing like this has gone viral. You can't even provide a source. His life is bars. Sorry, I wanted to say something about I wanted to say something about oh god, what was it? Something about how inmates will not so much protect each other, but because he was a cop and maybe he expected the guards would help him or something, and obviously they didn't do anything to help him out. I can't wait to hear people start going on about how he should sue the prison. Chauvin is the sacrifice for white guilt. Oh, I was going to make an Uncle Tom joke, but I don't know. This right here is the only reason hateful ideologies are solidified. You refuse to accept plain facts. Oh my God. Here, still here. He died of an overdose. 3 times a lethal dose of fentanyl and a lethal dose of meth. And the meth was lethal. And he managed to drive his car up to the station. Dude, this guy is just, he's one of the biggest assholes. I thought it was 4 times the lethal dose of fentanyl. No, this guy is saying 3 times the lethal dose of fentanyl, and the meth he was on was a lethal dose. And he managed to drive his car up to the store and write a check. He managed to fucking walk. People are fucking retarded, I'm telling you. You idiots have this guy overdosing multiple times on half a dozen different drugs before he even got out of the car. I wonder what's next. Did he make a sandwich? He make a sandwich with crack? Oh, now they struggled with him for 20 minutes to get him on the car. Oh my God. What did it say under cause of death? We saw the trial. We know the verdict. Derek Chauvin is in prison for murder. Oh, another American flag. Actually, I don't know what this dude even fucking said. I don't know, and I don't care. Poor police training, nothing else. Poor police training. Yeah. Imagine your loved one, your boyfriend, your husband, your brother, your nephew, your son, your dad, being caught on video with a knee on his neck while exclaiming he can't breathe and calling for his mother for almost 9 minutes, leading to his death. And the guy who murdered him goes to prison for murder because it was found by a judge, jury, and medical examiner that it was murder. And you get some asshole randomly telling you it was just poor police training. Murdering a guy by crushing his windpipe is just poor police training. We watched the trial. We listened to the experts, the evidence, saw the verdict. Derek Chauvin is in prison for murder. Yeah. Nope, you must not have seen. You must not have seen the body cam. The body cam. Yeah. On who from what planet? You didn't see the body cam. We saw the video. Unless they took the feed from a body cam on somebody in Timbuktu and tried to pass that off as Chauvin's body cam or whatever other officer that was there being their body cam. We saw the video. These people are fucking insane. It doesn't matter how hard you try to justify this murder. Derek Chauvin is in prison for murder. We saw the video. We saw it again. We saw it 10 times. We saw it 20 times. We saw it posted all over the internet 50 billion times. We discussed it with family. We discussed it with friends. We discussed it with coworkers. We watched the trial. We saw the evidence. We heard the evidence. We listened to the experts. We know it says cause of death is murder because we saw it in real time. A guy getting murdered. I don't give a fuck what color skin he had or what he was doing or what bad check he was writing or what drugs he used to do. Like I said before, that doesn't make it right. It doesn't mean you can crush his windpipe for 9 minutes. Everything in their power, they will do anything in their power to make it seem like it's okay to side with this piece of shit murderer. That it's okay that this guy got killed. Well, if it's okay, what the fuck are you arguing with me for? Why are you trying to convince me? Why are you trying to sell me and all these other people on the idea that George Floyd deserved to die? He was a piece of shit anyway. And Derek Chauvin is just such a wonderful cop who made a simple little mistake. Why would you care so much? Why are you even talking? If that's what you believe, fine. Why is it so important for me to believe what you believe? Because you're a piece of shit too. You don't want to admit it. That's why everything I've been hearing from these people is excuse after excuse. If you're so confident and you have no problem with this, then you wouldn't be making excuses. You wouldn't be defending him. You wouldn't be trying to sell me on this idea you have that Derek Chauvin is not really in prison for murder. I've listed off just from a handful of people, again, 50,000 different reasons they've come up with. There's no consistency, and they are not true. You're looking for reasons to defend this guy. Why is that? Why is that? Why are you looking for reasons to defend this guy and then trying to sell everybody on it? And that's how we know. That's how we know these people are just not right. They know that it's not sincere. They know it's wrong to defend this guy. They know it's absolutely inappropriate and they are completely wrong. They don't care. That's what this is all about. It's what it's all about. They don't care. They don't want to care. And they want you to be okay with it. It isn't. And, it actually doesn't mean much that they want to believe this guy is some saint. It shouldn't mean anything because justice prevailed. He got tried, convicted. He's in prison for a long time. And maybe within the next 24 hours, we might get a notification stating that he's died from his injuries. That could very well happen. And then there won't be anyone left to defend now, will there be? So I guess, it's all just a bunch of moot points. But we'll see.